He was the first black performer to win the Academy Award for Best Actor. He's the only black actor to have been listed in the American Film Institute's 50 Greatest Screen Legends. He's won 2 Golden Globes, a Grammy Award, a BAFTA Fellowship, been nominated for 2 Emmys and a Tony, been bestowed an honorary knighthood by Queen Elizabeth, and has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. The wide-eyed Bahamian who had never seen a film until he was 10 and could barely read at 16 became one of the greatest and most celebrated actors of all time, and he's one of my personal favorites, Sidney Poitier.
Well, you're pretty sure of yourself, ain't you, Virgil? Virgil, that's a funny name for a nigger boy that comes from Philadelphia. What do they call you up there?
They call me Mr. Tibbs.
Mr. Tibbs! Well, Mr. Wood, take Mr. Tibbs, take him down to the depot, and I mean boy like now.
Sidney Poitier was born on February 20th, 1927 in Miami, Florida, to Evelyn and Reginald Poitier, who owned a farm on Cat Island in the Bahamas. It was the family's plan to immediately move back there after Sidney's birth, but he unexpectedly was born 2 months premature and initially not expected to survive. Evelyn and Reginald stayed in Miami for an extra 3 months to ensure their son's health before leaving for their farm in the Bahamas. They lived on Cat Island until Sidney was 10 and then moved to Nassau, the capital of the Bahamas. It was here that young Sidney saw modern conveniences for the first time in his life, including automobiles, electricity, refrigeration, and motion pictures. In 1943, at 15, he went to live with his brother in Miami, where he first encountered the harsh realities of racism that widely existed in that era of American history. He wound up moving to New York City the next year, hoping to become an actor. However, his first auditions went badly as Sidney could barely read the scripts given to him. He was working as a dishwasher during this time, and an elderly Jewish waiter that he befriended sat down with him every night for several months to help him learn to fluently read English using the daily newspapers. At 16, Sidney lied about his age and enlisted in the Army, where he was assigned to work with psychiatric patients in Northport. However, he quickly became disillusioned with how the mental patients were being treated, and, wanting to be discharged from the Army, pretended to be suffering from a mental illness himself. He went back to dishwashing before eventually being accepted into the American Negro Theater. Sidney's initial performance didn't go over very well, though, as at the time African-American actors were expected to be able to sing and dance, skills that the tone-deaf Sidney just didn't have. He also still had a very heavy Bahamian accent, so Sidney dedicated himself to losing his accent. He patterned his speech after a radio personality named Norman Brokenshire. After these adjustments, his second attempt in a production was successful enough to get him cast in the Broadway production of Lysistrata. This led to him becoming an understudy for the play Anna Lucasta. It's also worth noting that Poitier met and befriended the great musician Harry Belafonte during this time. In 1947, Poitier became a founding member of the Committee for the Negro in Arts, an organization that analyzed class and racial exploitation. This led to him and other members being blacklisted in the industry for a few years. Poitier was later asked to sign a loyalty oath affirming his allegiance to the United States and no affiliation to any communist party, but he refused. In 1949, Sidney got a chance to play a doctor treating a white bigot in the movie No Way Out. His performance got him noticed in Hollywood, which led to a role in the film version of Cry, the Beloved Country in 1951. Then a role in Blackboard Jungle as a high school student, and a role in the movie Goodbye My Lady in 1956. But it was his performance in the 1957 movie Edge of the City that really made the industry stand up and take notice.
Come on, boy, you got a free arm. Come on, boy, hit it. Come on, boy, hit it now.
Boy.
Yeah, hit it.
Yes, sir, boss.
Hit it.
No more yes, sir, boss.
I'll catch a boat to Rio and I'll never be found.
No more yaza, boss.
I'll never be found.
No more yaza. Won't break.
After co-starring with Tony Curtis in The Defiant Ones, Poitier was nominated for Best Actor in a Lead Role, which marked the first time any black actor had been nominated. Sidney then went back to Broadway to star in the first production of A Raisin in the Sun with Ruby Dee. The groundbreaking production garnered heavy praise, and Poitier was nominated for a Tony Award. He then returned to Hollywood and starred in the 1959 film adaptation of Porgy and Bess, where he won a Golden Globe Award. In 1961, Sidney starred in the film version of A Raisin in the Sun and was nominated for a second Golden Globe. He went on to star in Paris Blues and Lilies of the Field, for which, this time, he took home the Academy Award for Best Actor, the first black actor to ever do so. Sidney, however, was a little bit concerned that it had been a token award to appease the political climate, and he stepped away and worked very little the next year after. In 1964, Poitier recorded an album called Poitier Meets Plato, where the actor recites passages from the great philosopher's writings. He then went on to return to the movies in 1965, appearing in The Bedford Incident, The Greatest Story Ever Told, and A Patch of Blue. Then in 1967 came 3 movies that would cement his standing with fans and critics as one of the great actors of all time, and the ones he is most synonymous with. In 1967, 3 films starring Sidney Poitier, with very dissimilar plots, yet very similar undertones, came out. The first was To Sir with Love, a British drama film that deals with social and racial issues in a secondary school. Poitier plays teacher Mark Thackeray, who takes over a class of unruly students, eventually gaining their respect. The second, In the Heat of the Night, was so successful that they later made a television series out of it. Poitier plays Virgil Tibbs, a police officer and forensic homicide expert from Philadelphia, who by chance finds himself in a small, racist town where a murder has just occurred, and he is reluctantly tasked with helping the police solve it. The townspeople are very bigoted toward Virgil at first, but he eventually wins them over. The third, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, deals with interracial relationships, when a young girl brings home her fiancé to meet her parents. Not only is her suitor 14 years older than her and a widower, but he is also black, and at the time this movie came out, it was still very much a sensitive subject and one that was not widely portrayed. Now, while critics and Poitier himself began to see a pattern of typecasting, Poitier struggled with it. He didn't want to be boxed into playing the same kind of character all the time, but on the other hand, these films were bringing more awareness to racism in the country, and at the time, he was the only black actor to be given any kind of prominent role in films, so he almost felt a kind of duty to continue on. The Virgil Tibbs character in The Heat of the Night was so well received that they made 2 follow-up movies called They Call Me Mr. Tibbs and The Organization. And of course, the aforementioned television series inspired by the movie. This conundrum would eventually lead to Sidney stepping out from always being in front of the camera to mostly behind it. In 1972, Poitier made his directorial debut on the Western film Buck and the Preacher. The following year, he directed and starred in the romantic drama A Warm December. Poitier then, along with Barbra Streisand and Paul Newman, formed a production company called First Artist Production Company. Under that production company, he then directed 3 successful comedy movies: Uptown Saturday Night, Let's Do It Again, and A Piece of the Action. But his most successful film came in the form of the 1980 comedy Stir Crazy, starring Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. This movie was so successful that it held the place of being the highest-grossing film directed by a black director for many years. In 1985, he directed Fast Forward. And in 1990, he directed the family comedy Ghost Dad. After this, he starred in a few more movies like Sneakers and The Jackal. Also in the 90s, he starred in several television movies and miniseries like Separate But Equal, To Sir with Love 2, Mandela and De Klerk, and The Simple Life of Noah Dearborn. Also in 1997, Sidney was appointed ambassador from the Bahamas to Japan, a position he held until 2007. In 2002, Poitier received an honorary Academy Award for his overall contribution to African cinema. Later, when Denzel Washington won an Academy Award for Best Actor, only the second African American to ever do so, he honored Poitier, saying that he's always been chasing him and following in his footsteps. In 2014, Poitier appeared with Angelina Jolie to present the Best Director award and was given a standing ovation when he came on stage. Jolie then thanked him for all his contributions and remarked that they were all in his debt.
We want to turn now to the death of groundbreaking actor and civil rights activist Sidney Poitier. President Biden called Poitier a once-in-a-generation actor, an advocate whose work carried so much dignity, power, and grace that it changed the world on and off the big screen. He was 94. CBS's Jim Axelrod looks back on the life and career of a
On January
Hollywood legend.
6, 2022, Poitier died at the age of 94 from cardiopulmonary failure. He was also suffering from Alzheimer's and prostate cancer at the time. Many people mourned and gave tributes to Poitier, including then-President Joe Biden and former Presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton. Also director Martin Scorsese, good friend Harry Belafonte, Morgan Freeman, Viola Davis, and the list goes on and on. Sidney Poitier inspired everyone who knew him and watched him. The poor Bahamian farmer who could barely read as a teenager persevered to become one of the greatest actors of all time, and his work with the Committee for the Negro in Arts, his groundbreaking films, and unwavering convictions made him not only an actor to idolize, but that person to aspire to become yourself. If you're a young person and you've never watched his films, I strongly encourage you to do so. Several of them, like In the Heat of the Night and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, not only demonstrate a realistic portrayal of racism, but a hopeful outlook that people can move beyond it. We not only lost a Bahamian ambassador to Japan when Sidney died, we lost an ambassador to the world. He's always been one of my favorite actors, and I'm sure he could be one of yours as well.